Today we consider together the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah. As many of you know, Hanukkah is considered a fairly minor holiday in the Jewish tradition. It's not in the same league as Yom Kippur, which we talked about together in September. It's not as major of a holiday as Rosh Hashanah or Passover or other holidays. It's a minor holiday in part because it's the only Jewish holiday that's not mentioned or mandated in the Hebrew Bible or the Torah. It is apocryphal. The story of Hanukkah is found in the non-canonical book of Maccabees, which is written in Greek, not in Hebrew. And it's discussed just briefly by the rabbis who are in the Talmud. Most of us, myself included, if we were asked what is the miracle that's being recognized or celebrated for Hanukkah, we would say something about the temple oil lasting longer than it should have, lasting for 8 nights, even though there was just enough oil for 1 night. Many learned rabbis and other learned Jews will point out that perhaps the real miracle of Hanukkah was the underdog victory of the Maccabees. In the 2nd century BC, the Jewish Holy Land was occupied by the Syrian Greeks, and the Syrian Greek occupiers took over the temple itself and didn't allow Jews to practice their religious traditions properly. And so a small group of Jews, known as the Maccabees, fought the mighty Syrian Greek forces, and amazingly they won, driving the occupiers out of the temple. And the temple was rededicated shortly thereafter, and the word Hanukkah actually means dedication. So many would say that the true miracle was this very unlikely victory. The miracle of the oil, many rabbis will say, was more or less a fairy tale tacked on to the story of the Maccabee victory. That's tacked on by the rabbis who put together the Talmud. As Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, a blogger that I love known as the Velveteen Rabbi, as she puts it, one plausible reason that the rabbis shifted toward a focus on the miracle of the oil is that they were already uneasy about the Maccabee story of military might. After all, there was an attempted revolt in 70 AD that resulted in the destruction of the Second Temple, and then came the Bar Kokhba revolt against the Roman Empire, 135 AD. And by the time the Talmud was compiled, it was clear that resisting imperial power had devastating effects. And so, Rachel Barenblatt says, the rabbis who compiled the Talmud didn't want to enshrine as a holy writ a story which might encourage Jews to resist and possibly be slaughtered. And so it's the miracle of the oil that we celebrate with the most gusto on Hanukkah. The central symbol and focus, of course, is the menorah, or really more specifically the Hanukkah. Menorah is the more generic term. This is Hanukkah. It's a great visual for remembering the miracle of the oil, not so much for the military victory. Rabbi Barenblatt notes that one of the great things about Judaism is that it is a multivocal tradition. There's always more than one answer to every question. There are wonderful debates. And so what might seem like a simple question, what's the main point of Hanukkah, has a lot of different answers. In addition to the obvious answers, it's about the miracle of the oil, or it's about the military victory. There are other potential answers. Rabbi Steve Greenberg says that for American Jews, Hanukkah is sometimes mostly about religious freedom, or freedom from tyrants. For traditional Jews, he says, it's often about a fight against assimilation. Hasidic Jews, he points out, a more mystical branch of Judaism, for Hasidic Jews, it's about the inner light, seeking one's inner life, and that small burning candle within. So everyone has their different answer about what's the most important thing about Hanukkah. As I think about it this year, the thing that jumps out at me is trying to figure out what's a miracle and what's just mundane. So let's consider the miracle of the oil, the central one most people think about. It's really a pretty modest miracle, as miracles go. I mean, if you compare this miracle of the temple oil to the miracles of Passover, for instance, the 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, now those are some miracles, right? By comparison, the miracle of the temple oil seems almost like a good card trick. It's the kind of miracle that doesn't necessarily seem supernatural. It might have been against the odds for the oil to last so long, but does it really go against the laws of nature per se? For instance, as some rabbis point out in the many debates, perhaps you could make the oil last longer by using shorter wicks or other clever adjustments. As Rabbi Barenblatt puts it, the Hanukkah miracle was just a cruise of oil lasting longer than it should have, like those trick birthday candles that refuse to go out. Hanukkah, she says, is a human-sized miracle. It's also, she tells us, a very manageable miracle. It's something we can almost reenact, lighting our own little candles against the darkness, increasing in light day by day as we move through the darkest time of the year. She also points out that the Hanukkah miracle required humans in order to make it happen. The parting of the Red Sea, that was all God. But the leap of faith it took to rekindle the eternal light in the temple, that was a very human leap of faith. There's something very human about the Hanukkah miracle, she says. Looking at it another way, as the great Jewish theologian Martin Buber puts it, what are miracles but awe-inspiring natural events recorded by extremely enthusiastic participants? Rabbi Mark Gellman writes about a great Jewish legend that you can find in the Talmud. It's a legend that says that some of the people that walked through the Red Sea in the Exodus from Egypt as it was parting never saw the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea because they never looked up. They just kept trudging along looking down. And so instead, all they saw was mud. As Rabbi Gellman writes, is it not possible that we humans were put here on planet Earth so that we might look up? That we humans are put here to look up and around for the miraculous so that all of our vistas might not be mud. And so that's what Hanukkah means to me, at least this year. For me, Hanukkah is parsing out the miraculous and the mundane with an openness to awe. I want to be one of Martin Buber's extremely enthusiastic participants. I want to see miracles when I look around and not mud. I want to look at the miracle of the Hanukkah oil and see not a good card trick or magic birthday candles. I want to see awe-inspiring faith and hope of a people that resisted having their spirits crushed or their traditions lost. I want to be one of those people that looks at a beautiful newborn baby and says, oh, it's a miracle. Not one of those cynics who says, and there's lots of little miracles walking around. Because yes, I realize that childbirth is well within the realm of the natural. It practically defines what is natural. It happens all the time. And yet, it is also a kind of miracle. Consider that today, in late 2018, there are approximately 7.7 billion human beings on planet Earth. That's a big number. 7.7 billion. And yeah, it might seem silly to think that there are 7.7 billion miracles walking around. I started to wonder how many people had ever lived on planet Earth. And it turns out that the experts think the number is somewhere around 108 billion human beings. So in addition to the 7.7 billion of us today, there were about 100 billion human beings before us. 108 billion miracles, that's a lot of miracles. But then I thought, well, okay, what about the sun? There's only one sun, the star closest to us. So I thought maybe the sun and stars are the real miracles. And I wondered how many stars there are. And of course, it's not really possible to know, but the scientists guesstimate that there are approximately 3,000 million billion stars in the universe. That's 3 followed by 16 zeros. So when you think about it, we human beings are much more rare and precious than stars. To quote one of my favorite songwriters, John Lennon, Instant Karma, "What on the earth do you think you are? A superstar? Well, right you are." Human life is rare and precious any way you look at it. I think we're really cosmic lottery winners. What are the odds of any one of us existing? Of course, it's impossible to calculate that. But just think that everything had to go exactly as it did for the last, 13.5 billion years? Everything. Either your biological parents met, or at least their biological material had to be brought together in some way, defying huge odds, and before that, other couples, and so, all the way back to 50,000 BC, when the first human beings were on Earth. And before that, of course, everything else. The sun and the earth had to wind up just where they did. Everything, the earth, the universe had to be created just as it did. It's staggering. It is a miracle. There are 7.7 billion miracles walking around. So take a look around the sanctuary today. Take a look at each other. Each of you individually is a miracle. But this exact combination of people, with no one added and no one taken away, it will never be together again. It won't. This is it. This gathering today is a one-time, one place in the universe miracle. Here it is. I'm a relative newcomer among you. I've only been here for about 4 months. So I want to put a mirror on you and let you know what I see when I look at this congregation. This congregation has been around for 304 years, many generations. You've had different buildings. You've had many different ministers. You've had many different standing committee chairs and deacons and other lay leaders. And yet, you've kept all of this going. You've made and created and preserved a spiritual home for people who might not have felt as supported or nurtured anywhere else. You've brought together a collection of people from different walks of life, from different circumstances, different ages, you name it. People who don't believe all the exact same things, but who share core values. And it's become, to me, this miraculous community. I see people who obviously care deeply for each other, in spite of whatever differences might be there. I see people who know how to do hard work and still have fun while they're doing it. I see people who really know how to do church, as we say. I know that the daily running and operating of a church seems as common as mud. But I look around and I see miracles. Every time I come into this building, whatever the weird hour I might be passing through, there's somebody here raking leaves, decorating for the holidays, folding up some sort of handout, doing that common work just out of love. That, to me, is a miracle. We've kept this flame burning here maybe 8 times longer than it seems like it should have. I don't know, but we've kept it burning. And so today, I hope that this minor Jewish holiday that we're appreciating can give us major inspiration to keep our own candle burning here. I want to thank you for the miracle that you have created and that you sustain. Blessed be, and amen.